The Cultural Exchange Plaza was the largest public space on Station Nexus Prime. It was designed for ceremonies, celebrations, and formal gatherings where multiple species could interact comfortably. Today, it hosted the third trial, Ethics and Society. The Council had prepared a series of tests designed to reveal the true character of humanity. They created simulated crises, moral dilemmas, and ethical challenges that had no easy answers. The idea was simple. Advanced technology meant nothing if the species using it lacked wisdom and compassion. Hyun-woo took the lead for this trial, with Soyeon, a human ethicist, supporting him. They stood before the assembled council, ready to face whatever judgments came. The first test was a classic dilemma. A holographic simulation showed a dying species sending a distress call. Their sun was going nova, and they had only days to evacuate. However, the species was known to be hostile, having attacked council worlds in the past. The question was posed, would humanity help their former enemies? Soyeon answered immediately. Yes. Past hostilities do not justify allowing an entire species to die. We would offer evacuation assistance and transportation to safe worlds. If they attacked us during the rescue, we would defend ourselves without abandoning them. Counselor Thex clicked skeptically. Pretty words. But how do we know you would actually follow through? Hyun-woo smiled sadly. Because we've done it before. During our expansion period before exile, we encountered 17 species in distress. 13 of them had been hostile to us previously. We saved them all. It's one of the few things from our early history that we're proud of. The second test involved resource scarcity. A simulation showed multiple worlds competing for limited resources needed for survival. How would humanity distribute them? Hyun-woo's response was detailed and thoughtful. Post-scarcity civilization is not about having unlimited resources. It's about learning to use resources efficiently and distribute them equitably. We developed energy systems that make most physical resources obsolete. But when scarcity cannot be eliminated, we prioritize based on need, not power or influence. Those who will suffer most receive aid first. The tests continued for hours, each one designed to find cracks in humanity's ethical framework. Prisoners' dilemmas where cooperation seemed foolish, trolley problems with impossible choices, scenarios where following moral principles led to greater harm than abandoning them. To each challenge, the humans responded with careful thought and consistent principles. They acknowledged that perfect solutions rarely existed. They admitted to past mistakes. But they demonstrated a moral framework that prioritized life, dignity, and fairness above expedience or self-interest. Finally, Counselor Brex asked the question that truly mattered. You have shown us impressive technology and overwhelming military capability. Now you demonstrate ethical reasoning that many of us struggle to match. Tell us truly, why did you return? What do you want from us? Daehyun stepped forward. He had been quiet during most of the trial, letting others speak. Now his voice carried through the plaza with absolute sincerity. 800,000 years ago, you banished us. You were right to do so. We were dangerous, aggressive, unwilling to compromise or consider views different from our own. We thought strength meant dominating others. We thought advancement meant taking what we wanted. He paused, looking around at the assembled species. The banishment forced us to confront ourselves. We had two choices: remain as we were and eventually destroy ourselves or evolve into something better. We chose evolution. Hyun-woo activated a holographic display that showed Earth's history. The wars, the devastation, the near-extinction events that had nearly ended humanity countless times. Our history is filled with horror. We do not hide from this. We studied every mistake, analyzed every failure, and asked ourselves hard questions about what we wanted to become. Soyeon continued the explanation. Within 50,000 years, we achieved post-scarcity civilization. No one went hungry. No one lacked shelter or medical care. But we didn't stop there. We used genetic refinement and cybernetic enhancement to improve our capacity for empathy and cooperation. We didn't eliminate individuality or free will. We simply made it easier to care about others and harder to harm them. The display changed, showing humanity's expansion across 10,000 star systems. We encountered over 200 other species during our growth. Some were primitive, just discovering fire. Others were advanced, nearly matching our technology. We contacted none of them without permission. We conquered no one. We established relationships based on mutual consent and benefit. Daehyun's voice grew softer. We returned because we learned something important during our isolation. Evolution without community is hollow. We achieved everything we set out to achieve. We became powerful, wise, and peaceful. But we were alone. We needed to reconnect with others, to be part of something larger than ourselves. He looked directly at Archon Velmis. We also returned, because our long-range sensors detected something troubling. The Galactic Council is stagnating. Your technology has barely advanced in 200,000 years. Your societies are stable but not growing. You're on a path toward slow collapse. We came back to help if you'll allow us. The silence that followed was profound. Many council members looked uncomfortable, confronted with observations they had privately worried about but never publicly acknowledged. Councillor Brex spoke slowly. You claim to have grown beyond us in wisdom and capability, yet you ask to join us rather than simply offering charity or imposing your solutions. Why? Soyeon answered. Because forcing change on others, even positive change, is just another form of domination. You must choose your own path. We can offer knowledge, technology, and partnership, but the decision to accept must be yours, made freely and without coercion. The trial concluded with the council acknowledging humanity's passage, 3 for 3. By all rights, humanity should be readmitted immediately. But Velmis stood and called for a recess. The council requires time to deliberate. Such a momentous decision cannot be rushed. We will reconvene in 3 days for the final vote. As the plaza emptied, Hyejin approached Daehyun privately. The conspiracy is moving forward. Velmis and 11 other council members are planning a military trap. They want to lure our ships into an ambush and destroy us before we can spread our influence. Daehyun nodded calmly. I know. Let them proceed. Hyejin looked troubled. You're going to let them attack us? We're going to let them try, Daehyun corrected. The council needs to learn this lesson completely. They need to understand not just what we can do, but what we choose not to do. Trust me, everything will be fine. And if you're wrong, Daehyun smiled, then we've survived worse mistakes than this. But I'm not wrong. This is the final test, not for us, for them. The conspiracy grew in the shadows of Station Nexus Prime, spreading like a disease through the minds of those consumed by fear. Archon Velmis moved carefully, speaking only to those he trusted to share his concerns about humanity's threat. In a secured chamber deep within the station, the conspirators met. 12 species represented, each bringing their military commanders and intelligence operatives. General Corvin stood beside Velmis, his massive form radiating barely controlled aggression. Humanity has demonstrated technological superiority. Velmis addressed the gathered representatives. They have shown military capability that makes our combined fleets look primitive. They speak noble words about peace and cooperation. But consider what this truly means. He activated a holographic display showing human territory, 10,000 star systems under their control. They claim to have encountered 200 species during their expansion. They say they established peaceful relationships. But where are these species? Why do they not speak for humanity? Perhaps because humanity eliminated them and took their worlds. The suggestion was baseless, but it found fertile ground in frightened minds. Several representatives nodded, their fear translating into suspicion. Corvin added his voice. The humans mock us with their restraint. They disabled our battle fleet in minutes while claiming to operate at 3% capacity. This is psychological warfare. They want us to feel helpless, inferior, so we surrender without resistance. A representative from one of the smaller council species spoke up nervously, but they have passed every trial. They have shown nothing but peaceful intent. Perhaps we should trust them. Velmis turned his cold eyes on the speaker. They have shown us what they want us to see. They control our communications, our databases, our infrastructure. They admitted this themselves. We are already conquered. We just don't know it yet. I propose we act now, while we still have the element of surprise. The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. They would create a false distress call from a remote colony in Council space. When human ships responded to help, 5,000 Council warships would be waiting in ambush. The attack would be overwhelming, using the full military might of the conspiracy. 5,000 ships? One representative questioned. Surely that's excessive. Have you already forgotten what one human vessel did to 50 of ours? Corvin growled. We bring overwhelming force or we don't engage at all. The conspirators agreed. They would maintain the appearance of normal diplomatic proceedings while secretly assembling their attack fleet. The ambush would occur in 2 days, during the scheduled deliberation period before the final vote. What none of them realized was that every word spoken in that chamber was being monitored. Humanity's quantum networks had infiltrated every system on the station from the moment they arrived. Not to spy for advantage, but to ensure they understood the full picture of what they were walking into. Hyjin compiled reports and sent them to Daehyun every few hours. She detailed the conspiracy's growth, the species involved, the attack plans being formulated. Her messages grew increasingly concerned as the scale of the planned ambush became clear. Daehyun's responses remained calm and consistent. Let it proceed. Finally, Hyjin confronted him directly in his quarters aboard the Perseverance. They're planning to attack us with 5,000 warships. That's half the Council's total military force. Even if we can survive it, the bloodshed could be enormous. There will be no bloodshed, Daehyun said with quiet certainty. How can you be sure? Because we've been preparing for exactly this scenario for 800,000 years. Daehyun pulled up historical records showing humanity's own past. Wars driven by fear, preemptive strikes against perceived threats. The same patterns repeating throughout Earth's violent history. We know how fear drives violence because we lived it, he explained. The Council is terrified. They see us as an existential threat to their identity, their status, their entire worldview. Of course they're planning to attack. It's what we would have done in their position, back before we learned better. Hyjin crossed her arms. So we just let them shoot at us? We let them try. Then we show them what mercy looks like, what restraint looks like, what power without domination looks like. Daehyun's eyes held absolute conviction. They need to learn that we could destroy them at any moment, but we choose not to. That lesson requires them to actually try to destroy us first. Yoonji entered the conversation, having been listening from the doorway. The tactical situation is in our favor. We've maintained full control of their military systems since arrival. The moment they order the attack, we can disable every ship simultaneously. But we won't, Daehyun said. Not immediately. We let them commit fully to the attack. We let them fire every weapon, launch every missile. We let them put everything they have into trying to destroy us. Only then, when they're certain they've won, do we reveal that we were never in danger. Hyunwoo joined them, his weathered face thoughtful. It's a dangerous gamble. If we miscalculate, if even one element goes wrong, the consequences could be severe. Everything worth doing carries risk, Daehyun replied. We could take the safe path, reveal the conspiracy now, expose the conspirators, shame them into submission. But that would only breed resentment. They would always wonder if they could have won. They would always suspect we manipulated them. This way they learn the truth experientially. They attack with everything they have, and they discover that we were never the threat they imagined. Soyeon, who had been reviewing psychological profiles, added her perspective. The Council's identity is built on being the galaxy's supreme authority. Our return challenges that identity fundamentally. They need to test us at our limits to accept that we're not trying to replace them. Otherwise, the fear will fester and eventually erupt anyway. The human delegation spent the next day preparing, but not for battle. They prepared for the aftermath. Medical teams ready to assist any injured Council crews. Diplomatic messages crafted to offer reconciliation. Technical support packages to help repair damaged systems. They were preparing to lose a fight they could win in seconds, so they could win the peace that mattered infinitely more. The false distress call went out right on schedule. A remote mining colony claimed to be under attack by pirates, calling for immediate assistance. The coordinates were carefully chosen. A region of space far from inhabited systems, perfect for an ambush. Daehyun looked at his command crew. Yunji, take the Perseverance and 2 support vessels. Respond to the distress call as if it were genuine. Knowing it's a trap? She asked. Especially knowing it's a trap, he confirmed. Remember, we're not trying to survive this. We're trying to teach them what it means to show mercy to those who attack us. Yunji nodded slowly, understanding the deeper game being played. The crew? Tell them everything. They deserve to know what they're walking into and why. Daehyun smiled slightly. Besides, I suspect most of them have already figured it out. We've never been very good at keeping secrets from each other. 3 human vessels departed Station Nexus Prime, heading toward the coordinates of the false distress call. Behind them, 5,000 Council warships moved into position, hidden in the gravitational shadows of dead planets and stellar debris. The trap was set. The prey was approaching. The galaxy held its breath, unaware that the true test was about to begin. The ambush zone was a region of space scattered with the remnants of ancient stellar bodies. Dead planets orbited a dim red dwarf star, their surfaces cold and lifeless. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Lots of gravitational interference to hide approaching ships, no witnesses, no chance of collateral damage. 3 human vessels dropped out of their dimensional fold at the coordinates provided by the false distress call. The Perseverance led, flanked by 2 smaller support ships. Their sensors immediately began scanning for the distressed colony that didn't exist. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Yunji sat calmly in the command chair. Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Everyone understood why they were allowing it. Taijin monitored tactical displays showing the positions of the 5,000 Council warships hiding throughout the system. They're powering weapons, energy signatures spiking across the entire fleet. They'll decloak and fire in approximately 30 seconds. Let them, Yunji said simply. Sunho at the helm glanced back. Should I activate evasive dimensional shifts? No, hold position. I want their sensors to show perfect hits on all 3 vessels. The 30 seconds felt longer than they were. Then, like a wave of death materializing from nothing, 5,000 warships decloaked simultaneously. They surrounded the 3 human vessels in a perfect sphere, weapons already firing. The amount of destructive power unleashed defied comprehension. Every weapon system known to galactic civilization fired at once. Antimatter missiles, gravitational shear beams, quantum disintegration fields, plasma lances hot enough to ignite stars, all focused on 3 small targets. For exactly 2 seconds, space itself seemed to scream with energy. The sensors of every ship registered direct hits. Perfect strikes. The human vessels should have been vaporized instantly, reduced to their component atoms. Then the sensors cleared, and the 3 human ships remained completely untouched, hanging in space as if nothing had happened. Yunji's voice cut through the stunned silence on every channel. We know. We have always known, and we forgive you. On Archon Velmus's flagship, chaos erupted. Officers shouted contradictory reports. Weapons officers insisted their strikes had landed. Sensor operators swore the humans should be destroyed. General Corvin's roar of fury could be heard throughout the command deck. Then Taijin's voice joined the broadcast, calm and analytical. At the moment we entered Council space, humanity established quantum network connections with every computer system in your civilization. Military, civilian, governmental, commercial, all of them. We have had complete access and control since the beginning. Holographic displays activated on every Council ship simultaneously, showing surveillance footage, every conspiracy meeting, every planning session, every fearful conversation that led to this moment. The conspirators watched themselves plotting humanity's destruction. Their words played back with perfect clarity. We knew about your plans from the moment you conceived them, Yunji continued. We could have stopped this at any time. We chose not to because you needed to learn this lesson. Fear makes people do terrible things, but terrible actions do not require terrible consequences. On the tactical displays visible to all 5,000 Council ships, something extraordinary happened. The weapon systems reactivated, but not under Council control. Every ship's armament turned away from the human vessels and pointed into empty space. We are now going to demonstrate something important, Sunho explained, his voice carrying across the fleets. Please observe carefully. Every weapon fired again. But this time the shots went harmlessly into the void, spending their fury on nothing but vacuum. The demonstration was clear. Humanity controlled every Council weapon. They could have redirected that initial attack anywhere, could have turned the Council fleet against itself, could have destroyed Station Nexus Prime or any inhabited world, but they didn't. Daehyun's hologram appeared before every ship, as if he stood on each bridge personally. His expression held no anger, no triumph, only sadness and understanding. 800,000 years ago you banished us because we were a threat. You were right. We were dangerous, aggressive, and unready for civilized society. Do you know what we did after you cast us out? He paused, letting the question hang. We could have nursed our resentment, built weapons, planned revenge. Instead, we looked at ourselves honestly and asked why you were right to fear us. That question changed everything. Yunwoo's hologram joined Daehyun's. We studied our own history. Every war, every genocide, every moment when fear drove us to attack first rather than understand. We found a pattern. Species that respond to fear with violence eventually destroy themselves. We decided to break that pattern. Soyeon appeared next. We spent 200,000 years learning to recognize fear in ourselves and manage it without lashing out. Another 100,000 years learning to see fear in others and respond with compassion rather than matching aggression. It was the hardest thing we ever did. Daehyun's voice grew stronger. You attacked us today because you were afraid. Afraid of being conquered. Afraid of becoming irrelevant. Afraid of losing your identity and purpose. We understand because we felt those same fears. They're real. They're valid. But they don't justify violence. The human holograms gazed out at the assembled fleet with infinite patience. You asked why we returned. This is why. 800,000 years ago, you were strong enough to banish us rather than destroy us. You gave us a chance to grow. We returned to give you the same chance. On Velmus's flagship, the reptilian Archon stared at the hologram with an expression no one had seen before. His scales had paled, his proud posture collapsed. He looked like a being confronting the full magnitude of his own mistakes. Yoonji made the final announcement.
We are now releasing all control of your systems.
Your ships are yours again. We will withdraw our quantum networks from your infrastructure completely. What you do next is your choice. We will respect whatever you decide. The human holograms vanished. Control returned to the Council ships. Weapon systems, engines, communications, everything back under their own authority. They were free to attack again if they wished. No one fired. Slowly, one ship broke formation. Then another. Then dozens. The 5,000-vessel fleet began to disperse, not in retreat but in confusion and shame. They had tried to kill the humans with everything they had. The humans had stopped them effortlessly, then given them back their weapons and freedom. Counselor Brex's voice came over the general channel, old and weary. All ships return to Station Nexus Prime. Emergency council session in 6 hours. We have much to discuss. As the fleet withdrew, Yoonji remained at her station watching them go. Her crew was silent, processing what had just occurred. Finally, Taejin spoke quietly. That was perhaps the most difficult battle humanity has ever fought. We won without fighting, and that's harder than any violence. It's not over, Yoonji replied. Now comes the hardest part. They have to decide whether to accept what we offered or reject it out of pride. We've shown them what we can do. Now we wait to see what they choose to do. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Every species had sent representatives, not just the official council members. The gallery sections overflowed with observers from across the galaxy. What happened here today would define galactic civilization for millennia to come. Counselor Brex stood at the central podium, his ancient form seeming even more weathered than usual. He had seen much in his long life, but nothing like the events of recent days. We are here to vote, Brex began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Not on whether to admit humanity to our council. That question is rendered meaningless by circumstances. We are here to vote on whether to accept humanity's offered partnership and assistance in reaching our own next stage of evolution. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The phrasing was deliberate and painful. Humanity didn't need the council's permission for anything. They were choosing to offer help rather than imposing it. Archon Velmus rose slowly from his seat. The reptilian looked diminished, his earlier pride completely extinguished. I was the primary voice arguing against humanity's readmission. I organized the conspiracy to destroy them. I believed they were a threat to everything we had built. His voice cracked slightly. I was wrong. Not about the threat, but about its nature. Humanity is a threat to our complacency, our arrogance, our belief that we had reached the pinnacle of civilization. They showed us how much further we have to climb, and when we tried to kill them for it, they forgave us. He looked toward the human delegation. I do not deserve your mercy. Neither does this council. But I vote to accept your offer, in hopes that we can learn even a fraction of what you have achieved. One by one, representatives spoke and voted, some with enthusiasm, seeing the opportunities ahead, others with reluctance, their pride wounded by the revelation of how far they had fallen behind. When the vote was called, 41 species voted to accept humanity's partnership. 29 refused, choosing isolation over perceived subordination. Daehyun stood to respond. The chamber quieted instantly, everyone waiting to hear humanity's reaction to the split decision. We respect both choices, Daehyun said simply. To those who accept, we offer our knowledge, technology, and friendship freely. We will work together to build something greater than either of us could achieve alone. To those who refuse, we offer the same protection and respect we have been providing since we arrived. You are free to choose your own path. We will be here when you are ready. Hyunwoo stepped forward, activating a massive holographic display. For those who voted to accept, we are immediately opening humanity's complete archives. 800,000 years of scientific research, philosophical development, artistic achievement, and historical records. All available freely. Learn at your own pace. Take what helps you. Leave what doesn't. Jiwon and Minji began outlining technology transfer programs, not just providing advanced devices, but teaching the underlying principles and safety frameworks. Technology without wisdom leads to extinction, Minji explained cheerfully. We learned that the hard way. We will help you avoid our mistakes. Soyeon established cultural exchange networks, offering assistance with social challenges each species faced. Every civilization struggles with poverty, conflict, and environmental degradation. We developed solutions that worked for us. They may not work exactly the same for you, but perhaps they will provide useful starting points. Yoonji made an announcement that stunned the assembly. We are immediately beginning to dismantle our surveillance networks. All quantum connections to your systems will be severed. This will take approximately 1 week to complete safely. We will operate only defensive capabilities, and only with full transparency. Trust must be earned through actions, not words. The integration began immediately. Within days, council scientists were accessing human archives, their minds reeling at the scope of knowledge suddenly available. Philosophical treatises that provided new frameworks for understanding consciousness and purpose. Scientific papers that opened entirely new fields of study. Historical analyses that helped species understand their own development patterns. The changes rippled across galactic civilization. Species that had been stagnant for millennia began advancing rapidly, inspired by human examples and assisted by human technology. But importantly, humanity kept stepping back, insisting that each species find their own path. Over the following decades and centuries, the transformation continued. The 29 holdout species watched their neighbors flourishing in partnership with humanity. One by one, they rejoined the council, pride eventually giving way to pragmatism. Former conspirators became humanity's strongest advocates. Velmus especially threw himself into promoting human council cooperation, driven by guilt but also by genuine conversion. He had seen the worst in himself and the best in humanity, and the contrast changed him fundamentally. The council itself evolved from a political body into a cooperative network. Hierarchy based on power gave way to collaboration based on mutual respect. Humanity deliberately avoided leadership positions, insisting that every species must govern themselves. One day, many years after humanity's return, Daehyun met privately with Counselor Brex. The old being was nearing the end of his lifespan, but his eyes remained sharp. Tell me truthfully, Brex said. Why did you really come back? You achieved everything possible in isolation. Why risk contact with us again? Daehyun was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Because we were lonely. We had everything except community. Technology, power, wisdom, all meaningless without others to share them with. You banished us 800,000 years ago. It was the greatest gift you could have given us. We returned to give that gift back. Brex laughed, a sound like wind through ancient trees. So the great mystery is solved. Humanity returned not from strength but from need. Not to conquer but to belong. Exactly, Daehyun agreed. Power is empty without purpose. Achievement is hollow without community. We learned that the hard way. Now we help others learn it the easy way. Years later, on Earth, representatives from all 70 council species gathered for the first Galactic Assembly. The format was revolutionary. No hierarchy, no designated leaders. Every voice equal. Every perspective valued. Daehyun stood before them. No longer an ambassador seeking admission, but a friend among equals. 800,000 years ago, you judged us unworthy and banished us. You were right. Today you welcomed us back, not because we proved our worthiness, but because we proved that worthiness can be earned through growth. Together, we will reach heights none of us could achieve alone. He gestured toward the gathered representatives. The age of isolation is over. The age of unity begins now. Not unity through domination. Not unity through forced conformity. Unity through the choice to grow together, to learn from each other, to lift each other up. The assembly erupted in approval. Expressions of joy and agreement translating across 70 different species and cultures. As the celebration continued, Yoonji stood beside Daehyun, watching the scene. We did it. 800,000 years and we finally came home. No, Daehyun corrected gently. We helped them come home. To themselves. To each other. To the potential they always had but forgot how to reach. Hyunwoo joined them, his weathered face peaceful. The council's regret wasn't letting us back. It was waiting so long to learn what we discovered, that true strength lies not in power over others, but in the courage to evolve beyond the need for power at all. The story ends with a view of the galaxy. Thousands of worlds connected by choice rather than conquest. Hundreds of species learning and growing together. Countless individuals discovering that their greatest achievements come not from standing above others, but from lifting others up. Humanity returned after 800,000 years. The galaxy would never be the same. Not because humans conquered it, but because they showed everyone what they could become together. The Deep Space Combat Zone was a region of empty space designated specifically for military demonstrations. It was far from any inhabited systems. A blank canvas where civilizations could display their martial prowess without endangering innocent lives. The Galactic Council had assembled an impressive battle fleet. 1,000 warships from 20 different species, representing the pinnacle of their combined military engineering. Each vessel bristled with weapons capable of cracking planets. Their shields had never been breached in actual combat. Their tactical networks could process billions of battlefield calculations every second. Archon Velmus stood on the command deck of the flagship, his reptilian features set in grim satisfaction. The humans impressed us with technology and clever materials. Now we test what truly matters: combat capability, strategy, the will to survive under fire. Beside him, General Corvin, a massive being whose species specialized in warfare, rumbled agreement. We have assigned 50 vessels for the actual trial. The human delegation need only survive for 1 hour. A generous test. No species in galactic history has lasted more than 20 minutes against such odds. The terms were broadcast to the human ships. 50 council warships would engage in full combat maneuvers. The humans could use any defensive measures, any tactics they wished. They need only survive 60 minutes without being destroyed. To everyone's surprise, humanity sent only one ship. The vessel that entered the combat zone was the Perseverance, Yoonji's command ship. It was small compared to the Council warships, sleek and elegant in design. To the Council's advanced sensors, it appeared lightly armed with minimal shielding. They send one ship? Corvin laughed, a deep booming sound. Either they are fools or they know something we do not. Fools, Velmus said confidently. Begin the engagement. The 50 Council warships moved into attack formation, spreading out to surround the Perseverance. Their weapons powered up, energy readings spiking across the spectrum. Then, on Corvin's command, they opened fire. The amount of destructive force unleashed was staggering. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains, missiles with antimatter warheads, gravitational distortion weapons that could tear a ship apart at the molecular level, all focused on the single human vessel. The attack should have lasted less than a second. The human ship should have been reduced to expanding clouds of plasma. But nothing happened. The weapons fired. The energy readings confirmed impact. But the Perseverance remained untouched, hanging in space as if nothing had occurred. Yoonji's voice came over the general communication channel, calm and almost apologetic. We should clarify something. Our defensive systems operate in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your weapons are striking the space where we appear to be, but we exist slightly outside your dimensional framework. We are here, but also not here. On the Council flagship, confusion reigned. Sensor operators frantically checked their instruments. Weapons officers recalibrated targeting systems. Nothing made sense. Then Taijin, Yunji's tactical officer, spoke over the same channel. Now, if you'll permit us, we'll demonstrate our offensive capabilities. Please do not be alarmed. Your crews are in no danger. The Perseverance didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, small objects began launching from its hull. They were tiny, each no larger than a human hand, and they multiplied rapidly. Within seconds, thousands of small drones filled the space around the combat zone. The Council ships attempted to shoot them down, but the drones moved with impossible agility, dodging every attack. Then they began approaching the warships, and reality broke down further. The drones didn't attack the ship's hulls or shields. They simply passed through them like ghosts, infiltrating the vessel's interior spaces. Once inside, they interfaced directly with the ship's computer systems. Corvin watched in horror as his flagship's controls began shutting down. Not violently, not destructively, but methodically and completely. Weapons offline, shields offline, engines offline. Life support remained functional, as did basic lighting and gravity. But everything that made the ship a warship simply stopped working. The same thing happened to all 50 vessels. In less than 4 minutes, the entire Council battle group drifted helplessly in space, crews unharmed but completely defeated. Yunji's voice returned. We have demonstrated that we can disable your entire military force without harming a single individual. This is important. We want the Council to understand that we could have taken hostile action at any time since arriving in your space. We chose not to. Sunho, the captain of the Perseverance, added more technical details. Our quantum intelligence networks infiltrated your computer systems the moment we entered Council space. Not just military systems, all systems. We have access to your communications, your databases, your infrastructure. We tell you this not as a threat, but to demonstrate our commitment to transparency and peace. Taijin's final statement was what truly shattered the Council's confidence. For the record, the Perseverance operated at 3% combat capacity during this engagement. We wanted to ensure the trial was fair. The silence that followed was absolute. On the Council flagship, Velmus stared at the tactical display with an expression no one had ever seen on his face before. Fear. Counselor Brex, monitoring from Station Nexus Prime, spoke into the silence. I believe humanity has passed the second trial. Does anyone dispute this? No one did. The fleet was restored to functionality within minutes, the human drones withdrawing as peacefully as they had arrived. The Council ships returned to the station, their crews shaken but physically unharmed. That night, emergency sessions convened across the Council. Some representatives argued for immediate surrender, certain that humanity planned to conquer them all. Others urged caution, pointing out that humans had multiple opportunities to attack but consistently chose not to. Velmus called together a secret meeting of the Council's most militant factions. We cannot allow this to continue. These humans are not just advanced. They are exponentially beyond us. If we do not act now while they are still few in number, we will never have another chance. General Corvin, his pride wounded by the effortless defeat, growled agreement. What do you propose? One more trial, Velmus said, his eyes gleaming. Ethics and society. We test their moral character, and while they are distracted with philosophical debates, we prepare our real response. If they prove to be the threat I believe they are, we will strike with our full military might before they can spread further. The conspiracy was born in that moment, sealed with agreements from 12 of the Council's more aggressive species. They would smile and test humanity's ethics publicly, while privately preparing for war. What none of them knew was that Hyejin, a human intelligence operative, was listening to every word through the quantum networks that humanity had quietly established throughout the station. She sent a brief message to Daehyun. They are planning to betray us. His response was immediate. I know. Let them. The orbital proving grounds above Station Nexus Prime were designed to showcase the galaxy's greatest technological achievements. The vast space station had observation decks that could hold thousands of spectators, all eager to witness the human trial. Counselor Thek stood at the presentation platform, his insectoid features arranged in what his species considered a proud expression. Around him floated holographic displays of the Council's finest inventions. For 800,000 years, the Galactic Council has pushed the boundaries of science. We have achieved faster-than-light travel, quantum shielding, matter replication, and weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Other Council representatives added their own achievements: energy extraction from dying stars, gravitational manipulation, artificial intelligence networks that spanned galaxies. Each presentation drew applause from the assembled observers. Finally, it was humanity's turn. The crowd quieted, anticipation mixed with barely concealed mockery. What could primitives possibly show them? Jiwan walked to the platform. She was a small woman with short hair and calloused hands that spoke of years working with machinery. She carried only a single small device no larger than a human fist. "Thank you for the demonstrations," Jiwan said, her voice calm. "We have observed your technology with great interest. Now please allow me to show you what humanity has developed." She activated the device. Immediately, the space around her shimmered. A portion of reality seemed to fold inward, creating a visible distortion. This is dimensional folding technology. We do not travel faster than light. We manipulate space itself, allowing instantaneous movement between any 2 points in the universe, the crowd murmured. Faster than light travel took hours or days to cross between systems. Instantaneous travel was theoretically possible, but no one had managed to stabilize it. "Impossible," Thex declared. "The energy requirements alone would drain a star." Jiwan smiled. "We solved that problem 300,000 years ago." She activated another function. A holographic display showed swirling patterns of energy. "We extract unlimited power from quantum vacuum fluctuations. The universe itself provides infinite energy. We simply learned how to tap into it." Minji, another human scientist, stepped forward. She had an animated way of speaking, her hands moving as she explained. "May I demonstrate our material science?" Without waiting for permission, she produced a small square of what appeared to be metal. "This is quantum lattice material. Please destroy it however you wish." Archon Velmus, watching from his seat, signaled for a weapons test. A focused energy beam, strong enough to vaporize a building, struck the small square. The material glowed white-hot for a moment, then cooled. It was completely undamaged. "Impressive shielding," Velmus admitted grudgingly. "That wasn't shielding," Minji said cheerfully. "The material was destroyed at the atomic level. What you're seeing is complete regeneration. It rebuilds itself instantly using ambient energy. You cannot destroy it because it repairs faster than damage can accumulate." The council chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Regenerating materials were the stuff of theoretical physics, not practical application. But Jiwan wasn't finished. She activated her device again, and a complex machine began to materialize in midair, assembling itself from nothing. "Nanoforge technology. We convert pure energy directly into matter with perfect atomic precision. Any object, any structure, any material can be created anywhere, anytime, as long as we have the pattern stored in our databases." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his weathered face serious. "Honorable council members, we developed these technologies within the first 200,000 years of our exile. They are now standard across all human settlements. We share them openly to demonstrate our peaceful intentions and our desire for cooperation." Councillor Brex, the elderly representative, leaned forward. "If you possess such technology, why do you need us at all?" Daehyun, who had been standing quietly to the side, finally spoke. "Because technology alone does not make a civilization worthy. We have the means to do many things. We return to learn if we have the wisdom to do them correctly. Your council has maintained peace among 70 species for millions of years. That is an achievement no technology can replicate." The diplomatic answer seemed to satisfy some council members, but others, like Velmus, looked troubled. The reptilian Archon's eyes narrowed as he studied the human delegation. After the demonstrations concluded, the council convened in private session. The debate was fierce. Some argued that humanity had clearly passed the first trial. Others worried about the implications of such advanced technology. "They could have kept these secrets," Brex observed. "Instead, they revealed them freely. That speaks to their character." "Or their arrogance," Velmus countered. "They know we cannot match them, so they flaunt their superiority. I say we move immediately to the military trial. Let us see how their pretty technology performs in actual combat." The vote was called. The motion passed. Humanity would face the second trial within 3 days. Back on their ship, the human delegation reviewed the results. Yunji pulled up sensor data from the Council's reaction. 30% increased heart rates, elevated stress hormones across multiple species. They're scared. Good, Hyunwoo said. Fear will make them cautious. Caution will make them think before acting. Daehyun gazed at the data, his expression thoughtful. The next trial will be harder. Not for us, but for them. We must show strength without threatening, capability without aggression. If we make them feel too inferior, they will lash out. Ji-won, still reviewing her presentation notes, looked up. How much should we hold back? Enough that they believe they still have a chance, Daehyun said. But not so much that they think we are weak. Minji laughed softly. We're trying to make friends while showing them we could destroy their entire civilization with a thought. This is going to be delicate. That's why we spent 800,000 years preparing, Daehyun replied. We made every mistake possible. Now we help them avoid making the same ones. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a sound that echoed through the hall. Inside, representatives from 70 different alien species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. The chamber had stood for millions of years, witnessing countless debates and decisions that shaped the galaxy. Today, however, something unusual was happening. The council members whispered among themselves, their various forms of communication creating a strange symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic beeps. Long-range sensors had detected something impossible. Human vessels were approaching Station Nexus Prime. Archon Velmus, a tall reptilian creature with scales that shimmered green under the chamber lights, stood at the head of the council. His eyes, cold and ancient, scanned the room with barely concealed contempt. Humans. The very word was almost forgotten, buried in historical archives that few bothered to access anymore. Silence, Velmus commanded, his voice amplified through the chamber's systems. We have received a communication request from the approaching vessels. They claim to be human. Laughter erupted from several sections of the chamber. The insectoid Counselor Thex clicked his mandibles in amusement. Humans? Those primitives were banished 800,000 years ago. They must be extinct by now or living in caves on some forgotten rock. But the laughter died when the main viewing screen activated. A human face appeared, calm and composed. He looked young, with dark hair and eyes that held no fear or anger. Only patience. Greetings, Galactic Council, the human said. My name is Daehyun. I serve as ambassador for humanity. We request permission to dock and address the council regarding readmission. Velmus leaned forward, studying the human's face. Readmission? You were cast out for your violence and refusal to follow galactic law. What makes you think anything has changed? Daehyun smiled slightly. Everything has changed, Archon. We have spent 800,000 years learning, growing, and evolving. We are not the same species you banished. We ask only for the opportunity to prove ourselves worthy of rejoining the galactic community. Another council member, an elderly being named Brex, whose species had been part of the council since its founding, spoke up. And if we refuse? Then we will respect your decision and depart peacefully, Daehyun replied. We seek cooperation, not conflict. The council erupted into debate. Some called for immediate rejection. Others, curious about how humanity had survived so long, suggested hearing them out. Finally, Velmus raised his hand for silence. Very well, human. We will grant you this audience. But know this, the Galactic Council does not easily forget transgressions. You will be tested. Should you fail to demonstrate significant progress, you will be permanently barred from our space. Do you accept these terms? We accept, Daehyun said without hesitation. 3 human ships were granted docking permission. They were sleek vessels, unlike anything in the Council's current database. The design was minimalist, almost elegant, without the heavy armor plating and obvious weapon systems that characterized most galactic warships. When Daehyun and his delegation entered the council chamber, they walked with quiet confidence. Behind Daehyun came Eunji, a woman in a dark uniform with commander insignia, and Hyunwoo, an older man carrying a data device. Velmus addressed them from his elevated seat. You have requested readmission to the Galactic Council. We have decided to grant you 3 trials. First, you must demonstrate technological advancement. Second, military capability. Third, ethical and social development. Fail any trial and you will be cast out forever. The first trial begins tomorrow. You may go. The human delegation bowed slightly and left. As they walked through the corridors back to their ship, Yunji spoke quietly. They underestimate us. They fear us, Hyunwoo corrected. They just don't know it yet. Daehyun said nothing, but his eyes held a distant look. He remembered the historical records, the archives that detailed humanity's banishment. Earth had been young then, aggressive and proud. Humans had expanded too quickly, claimed too much, refused to bow to anyone. The Council had been right to cast them out, but that was then. 800,000 years was a long time. Long enough to make mistakes. Long enough to learn from them. Long enough to become something entirely new. As they boarded their ship, the command deck came alive with holographic displays. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for the next day. Yoonji pulled up tactical assessments of the Council's technology. Hyunwoo reviewed cultural databases. Daehyun stood at the forward viewport looking out at the massive station that housed the Galactic Council. They think we need them, Yoonji said, coming to stand beside him. Daehyun nodded slowly. Let them think that. Tomorrow we begin showing them the truth. Not all at once. We don't want to break them, just enough to make them question everything they believe they know. And if they attack us anyway, then we show them mercy, Daehyun said firmly. That's why we came back. Not to conquer, not to prove superiority, to show them what we learned in our exile, that true power lies in choosing not to use it.